Before the great flood, when the world was still pure and untouched, the heavens looked down in quiet order. Humanity was young and innocent. So God, in his wisdom, chose guardians to watch over them, 200 angels who would guide and protect the children of earth. These were called the Watchers, the sons of heaven. One day, God spoke to them, "Go now, my watchers, and guard the world I have made. Let no corruption rise from the dust. Guide them in silence, and behold, but do not touch." They understood well what God's command meant. Obedient and resolute, they prepared to fulfill their duty. Then the sky opened, and the watchers began their descent through the clouds toward the waiting earth. At their head was Semjaza, their leader. He carried himself with quiet authority. Beside him walked Azazel, whose mind was restless even in heaven. He had always looked upon creation with a questioning gaze, eager to understand what lay beneath the surface of all things. They came to rest upon the peak of Mount Hermon, where the stars seemed close enough to touch. It was the closest they were permitted to come to the earth below, high enough to see all that lived, yet distant enough to remain apart, as their duty required. Semjaza looked upon the faces of his brothers. "Brothers of heaven," he said, "we have come to watch over mankind. But the earth is vast, and the hearts of men are untested. If one among us falters, the burden will fall on all. Let us swear an oath to stand together, always." Azazel stepped forward with shining eyes. "If we fall together," he said. "Let it be sealed among us." The others raised their hands toward the stars. Their voices joined as one. "We are bound together. We will not forsake one another." Time passed, and the watchers watched men light fires and share their first songs beneath the moon. They saw the laughter of children and the quiet love between husband and wife. They saw the joy of life, and something within them began to stir. At first, they only observed, but the longer they lingered, the harder it became to stay apart. Semjaza watched the daughters of men as they drew water from the rivers. "They live so freely," he thought. "They know no command but the beat of their own hearts." Azazel stood beside him. "They are fragile," he said quietly. "And yet, there is strength in them, the kind that does not bow, even to heaven." The others began to whisper among themselves too. Curiosity turned to longing, and longing turned to desire. Semjaza felt the weight of it pressing on his chest. He turned his face toward the sky, as if searching for a voice to silence what he felt. But there was only wind. He looked again at the world below, and he envied what he saw. The watchers were no longer only watchers. They were witnesses to something they could not resist. For the first time in eternity, the sons of heaven felt desire. Days turned into months, and months into years. Yet Semjaza's gaze never wavered. He watched the world below with the same quiet wonder. And even though they had sworn an oath, hesitation lingered in his heart. And then, finally, he broke the stillness. "Brothers," he said, "we have watched them for so long. Their lives are brief, yet they burn with a light we do not know. Is it truly wrong to wish to walk among them?" Arakiel answered, "It is not wrong to wish, but the act will condemn us. Heaven forbids it." Semjaza turned to him. "And yet, is heaven not silent?" "Perhaps the silence is permission." Azazel stepped closer. "You fear punishment, Semjaza. You think you will fall alone. But we have sworn together. If one falls, all fall. None will turn away." Semjaza's gaze drifted back to the earth. "I only fear," he said, "that in seeking love, we will bring ruin." Arakiel placed a hand on his shoulder. "We already chose, brother. The vow is made. Let us finish what we began." The air grew heavy, and silence settled over them. Even the night seemed to wait. Then Semjaza lifted his face to the sky and whispered, "So be it." And the watchers descended once again. But this time they came through clouds and light, descending toward the earth that had long drawn their eyes and stirred their hearts. To the eyes of men, they appeared as tall and radiant beings. The daughters of men saw them and trembled. Semjaza approached one woman by the river. Her eyes reflected the starlight. "Do not be afraid," he said softly. "I have watched over you since your birth." She trembled. "You are not of this world." "No," he said, "but tonight I choose to walk within it." And so the watchers took wives among the daughters of men. They lived with them, and for the first time, heaven and earth became one. Light and flesh joined in a single breath. From this union came the Nephilim, mighty and restless giants. Their strength had no limit, and their hunger knew no end. They ruled over men like gods, and the world trembled beneath them. While Enoch was resting in his bed, sleeping, two extraordinary figures suddenly appeared beside him, greater than any men he had ever encountered on earth. Their faces radiated like the brightness of the sun, and their eyes burned like blazing lamps. From their mouths, fire seemed to emerge, and their garments shimmered with what looked like feathers. Their arms, adorned with golden wings, glowed beside his bedside. They called to him softly, "Enoch, Enoch." Startled, he awoke from his slumber, and they spoke with gentle assurance. "Be of good cheer, Enoch, and do not be afraid. The everlasting God has sent us to you, and today you shall ascend with us into the heavens." They lifted him up, placing him upon their wings, and together they soared above the earth, carried by the clouds. Higher and higher they ascended, past the air, and still further into the realm of the ether until they reached the first heaven. There the Elohim revealed to Enoch the human and divine mysteries, and he also learned about the moment when the angels had fallen. As humanity grew and multiplied in those days, many beautiful daughters were born to them. The angels, the children of heaven, saw these women and were filled with desire. They said to each other, "Let's choose wives from among the daughters of men and have children with them." Semjaza, their leader, hesitated and said, "I'm afraid you won't all follow through with this plan, and I alone will be left to bear the great punishment for this sin." But they all responded, "Let's swear an oath together and bind ourselves to this plan, so no one backs out." So they all swore together, binding themselves with a solemn promise. There were 200 of them in total, and they descended to earth during the days of Jared, landing on the summit of Mount Hermon. They named it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves with an oath there. These are the names of their leaders: Semjaza, their chief, Arakiba, Ramel, Kokabiel, Tamiel, Ramiel, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakijal, Asael, Armaros, Batarel, Ananel, Zakiel, Samsapeel, Satarel, Turel, Jomjael, and Sariel. These were their captains, each commanding groups of 10. Together with these leaders, the rest of the angels took wives from among the women of earth. Each chose one, and they entered into them, defiling themselves. They taught these women magic spells, charms, root cutting, and introduced them to the knowledge of plants. The women became pregnant and gave birth to enormous giants whose height reached thousands of feet. These giants consumed all of humanity's resources, and when humans could no longer provide for them, the giants turned against humanity and began to devour them. They sinned against birds, beasts, reptiles, and fish, and even began to eat each other's flesh and drink blood. The earth itself cried out, accusing the lawless ones. Azazel taught humanity how to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates. He revealed the secrets of metals, how to work with them, and introduced the crafting of bracelets, ornaments, and the use of antimony. He also taught the art of beautifying the eyes, the value of precious stones, and the use of dyes. Wickedness spread like wildfire. People indulged in sin, committed fornication, and became thoroughly corrupt in their ways. So who were the Watchers? According to the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text from around 300 BC, the Watchers were no ordinary angels. They were a select group, chosen by God for a mission unlike any other, to oversee humanity in its earliest days. Their purpose was profound, yet delicate, to observe, guide, and protect the fragile human race as it took its first uncertain steps into existence. At this time, humanity was raw and untamed, barely scratching the surface of its potential. Life was simple but unpredictable, full of both beauty and struggle. Communities were forming, but survival often felt like a battle against the elements. In his wisdom, God saw fit to appoint the Watchers to this sacred task, not to interfere, but to quietly guide, ensuring humanity grew in harmony with divine principles. The Watchers were exceptional beings. They were angels of immense wisdom and power, chosen for their discipline and devotion. They were meant to act as guardians, an invisible line between the divine and mortal realms. From their vantage point in the heavens, they observed humanity's joys and sorrows, its perseverance and fragility. Humanity was not perfect, but it held a spark, an unpredictable, untamed potential that fascinated even the angels. But what happens when those tasked with guiding humanity begin to question their own roles? What if their fascination turns into something forbidden? This is where the story of the Watchers takes a dramatic turn, one that would change not only the Watchers but the course of humanity forever. The Watchers didn't just watch, they acted, and their actions would shake the very fabric of creation. It began with curiosity, perhaps even admiration. Soon this admiration turned into something far more dangerous. The beauty of human life, the complexity of emotion, and yes, the allure of human women, proved too much for some of them. One angel, Semjaza, couldn't resist. He saw in humanity something extraordinary, something untamed yet filled with potential. But he knew the risks. This kind of contact with humanity was strictly forbidden. Still, he couldn't ignore his desires. So, he devised a plan. If he were to fall, he wouldn't fall alone. Semjaza rallied others, convincing them to take an oath of rebellion. 200 angels pledged to leave their heavenly posts, descending to earth to act on their desires, whatever the cost. And that's where everything changed. This was the beginning of something much larger, something that would echo through time. Stay with us, because the story of the Watchers is far from over. What they did wasn't just a betrayal, it might have been the spark of an entirely new chapter in the history of humanity. The Watchers didn't come to Earth empty-handed. They brought gifts, powerful, transformative knowledge that propelled humanity forward in ways we could have never imagined. But as history has shown, knowledge is a double-edged sword. What the Watchers gave us shaped civilization, but it also unleashed chaos. Let's start with Azazel. Among the 200 Watchers, his name stands out, and for good reason. Azazel introduced humanity to metallurgy, teaching us how to forge weapons from iron and bronze. This was a lesson in dominance. With weapons, humans no longer needed to rely on brute strength or sheer numbers. Power could now be wielded by those who controlled the tools of war. Battles became bloodier, and conflicts escalated as tribes fought for territory, resources, and revenge. Weapons brought power, and power bred violence. But Azazel didn't stop there. He also revealed the secrets of adornment. Jewelry, makeup, and other symbols of beauty became widespread. What might seem harmless today was, in ancient times, a revelation. These gifts bred vanity and desire, fueling envy, seduction, and manipulation. The Watchers had introduced humanity to a world where appearance could be a weapon as dangerous as any blade. While Azazel shaped the Earth's physical tools, another Watcher, Kokabiel, turned humanity's eyes to the heavens. He taught us astrology, the study of the stars, and the secrets of celestial movements. To early humans, this was revolutionary. The heavens, once an unknowable expanse, now became a cosmic map, one that could predict seasons, navigate lands, and even foresee future events. But with this knowledge came another temptation, the desire to control fate. Amaras taught the art of enchantments and curses, introducing humanity to the world of sorcery. These teachings opened doors to manipulating the natural world and other people. Magic, once hidden in the shadows, became a tool wielded by those seeking power. At first, these gifts seemed like blessings. Agriculture flourished, societies became more organized, and humanity began to assert control over its environment. The Watchers' knowledge laid the foundation for early civilizations. But this progress came at a cost. Weapons led to war. Vanity drove corruption. Magic and astrology, once tools of wonder, became sources of fear and manipulation. The Book of Enoch describes how the greatest consequence of the Watchers' rebellion was the creation of the Nephilim. These hybrid beings, born of forbidden unions between angels and humans, were giants in every sense of the word. Their physical size was matched only by their appetites for food, for power, and for destruction. The Book of Enoch describes how the Nephilim consumed the earth's resources, turning fertile lands into barren wastelands. Their presence disrupted the balance of nature itself, leaving devastation in their wake. It wasn't just the Nephilim's physical dominance that terrified humanity. It was their moral corruption. The Nephilim were said to have inherited the worst traits of both their angelic and human parents: arrogance, greed, and a thirst for control. They were tyrants, and their reign of terror pushed humanity to the brink. Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven, and what they saw broke their hearts. Blood flowed across the earth, and lawlessness spread like a plague. They turned to each other in despair and said, "The earth, once peaceful and uninhabited, now cries out with the voices of the suffering. Their cries have reached the very gates of heaven, begging for justice." The souls of humanity were pleading to the holy ones in heaven, asking, "Please take our case before the Most High." In anguish, the angel spoke to the Lord, saying, "O Lord of lords, God above all gods, King of kings, your glorious throne has stood for all generations, and your name is holy and blessed forever. You are the creator of everything, and all things are under your control. Nothing can be hidden from you, for you see all. You see what Azazel has done, how he has led the world into darkness, teaching humanity forbidden knowledge, secrets that were meant to stay in heaven. And Semjaza, who was given authority over his followers, has led them to earth. They have taken human women for themselves, defiling them, and through their sin, the women gave birth to giants. Now the earth is soaked in blood and filled with evil. The souls of the dead cry out to heaven, and their sorrowful voices cannot be silenced. They weep for justice, for the terrible wrongs that are being committed on earth. And you, Lord, you know everything before it happens. You see this devastation, but we don't understand why you allow it. You haven't told us what to do." Then the Most High, the Holy and Great One, finally spoke. His voice thundered with authority, and he sent Uriel to the son of Lamech. "Go to Noah," he commanded, "and tell him, 'In my name hide yourself. The end is near. The whole earth is about to be destroyed by a great flood. Everything will be wiped out. Tell him so he may escape and his descendants may survive, to carry on the generations of the world.'" Then the Lord turned to Raphael and said, "Go, find Azazel. bind his hands and feet, cast him into the darkness, into the desert of Dudail. Dig a deep pit and throw him inside. Pile jagged rocks over him. Let him remain there, buried in darkness, so he may never see the light again. He will stay there forever, and on the day of final judgment, he will be thrown into the eternal fire. But now heal the earth, cleanse it from the corruption brought by the angels, announce the healing of the land, so that not all humanity will perish from the secrets the watchers revealed. The whole earth has been ruined by what Azazel taught, so let him bear the weight of all sin. The Lord spoke to Gabriel with a heavy command, "Go forth against the unholy offspring, the rebellious and corrupt. Destroy the children born from sin, the children of the fallen watchers. Set them against each other. Let them battle and wipe each other out, for their days are numbered, and they will not live long." He continued, "And as for their fathers, the watchers, let no plea they make on behalf of their children be heard. They had hoped for eternal life, thinking their offspring might live for 500 years, but their hopes will be shattered." Then the Lord turned to Michael and said, "Bind Semjaza and his companions, those who have tainted themselves by uniting with women and defiling their purity. When they witness their sons killing each other and see the destruction of those they love, bind them tight in the depths of the earth. They will remain there, imprisoned for 70 generations, until the final judgment, until the day of reckoning that will last forever. On that day, they will be thrown into the fiery abyss, into torment and eternal imprisonment, where they shall never be free. Anyone condemned to destruction will be bound with them, sharing their fate for all generations to come. Wipe away the spirits of the corrupt and the children of the watchers, for they have wronged humanity. Let all wickedness be cleansed from the face of the earth, and let righteousness and truth take root. Let it be a blessing, a new beginning, where justice and joy will grow forever." The Lord promised, "The righteous will survive, they will thrive, and live long enough to have thousands of descendants. They will live in peace, from their youth to their old age, without fear or sorrow. The earth will be tended with righteousness, flourishing with trees and overflowing with blessings. The most desirable trees will cover the land, vines will yield an abundance of wine, and the seeds sown in the ground will bear 1,000-fold. Even a small measure of olives will produce 10 presses of oil. Cleanse the earth from all oppression, from every form of evil, sin, and godlessness. Wipe away the filth that has tainted it. Then all the children of humanity will become righteous. Every nation will adore and praise me, and all will worship. The earth will be purified from all defilement, sin, punishment, and torment. Never again will I send such suffering upon it, from generation to generation, forevermore. In those days, I will open the heavenly storehouses of blessings and rain them down upon the earth, rewarding the work and toil of humanity. Truth and peace will walk hand in hand, lasting throughout all the days of the world and across every generation of humankind." Before these events, Enoch had disappeared, hidden away from humanity. No one knew where he had gone or what had become of him. Enoch's life was intertwined with the watchers, and he spent his days among the holy ones.